What's up, guys, and welcome back to another Fantasy Football 2022 season. Going into week number 3, talking about wide receivers this time around, those still left on the waiver wire, and those that I think are not going to be worthy of starting coming into this weekend's games. We're starting out here with those players that, one, I even picked up last week, left them on my bench, regrettably so, but the player I actually picked up was owned in less than 1% of leagues, now up to 5.5%. That's Greg Dortch, or as I would like to call him, Greg Dork, put up 16 points last week in that matchup, and I think could very easily repeat that one. Rondale Moore still going to be out going into this one. DeAndre Hopkins is still not back. Greg Dortch is a name that is going to be up there with a wide receiver 2 liking. I think even could a flex wide receiver 2. I think somewhere in there, Greg Dortch certainly a player to look out for. Going into this week's matchup, it's not going to be very easy. It's going against the Rams. It's going to be a tough divisional matchup, but that ball's got to get out somewhere. I think Greg Dortch is going to be a good target for Kyler Murray once again. Number 2 on the list is a player that did get a lot of attention, has gotten a lot of love this last week on the waiver wires, but still owned in less than 24% of leagues, and that's Sterling Shepard for the New York Football Giants, because frankly, who else is going to catch the ball? And that's about it. That's the beginning and end of the argument. Sterling Shepard is the guy for the Giants. I think that we know the talent of Shepard. We've seen it over the last few years. We know that Shepard's a great wide receiver. I just believe that there is a lot of talent, a lot of potential there for a wide receiver. So if you do not own, if you need another wide receiver there to throw into a flex position in a favorable matchup, Sterling Shepard is going to be a pretty decent one to put in. Not to mention that Danny Dimes has been throwing some dimes lately. He's taken care of the ball pretty well. Has certainly not done anything too crazy to risk Sterling Shepard's fantasy potential here. Number 3 on my list is going to be the trio, actually. It's going to be 3 wide receivers between Russell Gage, Brashad Perriman, and Scotty Miller. I talked about them in my quarterback video as why I'm avoiding Tom Brady as a quarterback play, but just because I'm avoiding Tom Brady as a quarterback doesn't mean I'm avoiding these players as potential pickups, at least for this week. Russell Gage owned in over 50% of leagues, 54.8%. Brashad Perriman only owned in 4%. Scotty Miller even less at 0.3%. But you look at these 3 players and why they now have potential going into this week specifically. Mike Evans suspended after, of course, that hit and little scuffle. Marshawn Lattimore last week against the Saints. Chris Godwin out for injury. Julio Jones is a game-time decision going into Sunday, so flip a coin. Maybe if Julio's in, Scotty Miller drops off. Maybe Perriman drops off more than Scotty Miller, in my opinion. But then you also have Russell Gage and Perriman, both listed as questionable. They're not game-time decisions, but questionable from the same injuries they had last week where they actually did play against the Saints. And Scotty Miller, as wide receiver, like number 6, is the first receiver that is no injury designation, is fully healthy, 100%, will be on the field on Sunday. So there's certainly some secret investment that you might have there with Scotty Miller. We've seen Scotty do some pretty good work for Tampa in the past. We know how Tampa Tom is. We know Tom Brady in general with his wide receivers. I don't write the scripts. I just read them. Tampa Tom's doing it for us. Scotty Miller might be a pretty good pickup. Like I said, owned in less than 0.5% of leagues. So certainly looking at that Tampa Bay wide receiver core this weekend if you are needing a flex position. Which is going to lead me to the no-goes this week for wide receivers. I'm going to go with the no-go. Number 1, Christian Kirk, the most overpaid wide receiver in the league. Get that money. I don't blame you, but I think the LA Chargers are going to bring too much pressure to Trevor Lawrence for comfort. I don't think Lawrence is going to have the time that he needs to efficiently get the ball out. I think Christian Kirk, granted, has done well in fantasy so far as the number 1 guy in Jacksonville. I just don't think this is going to be a good week for the play. If you got him, leave him on the bench. Which leads me to my second spot of the no-goes, and that is the entire Kansas City wide receiver core. I think you're going to get some points, some value out of them going into the game because, yes, Patrick Mahomes is going to throw a couple of touchdowns, 2, maybe 3. But when the Chiefs are winning 35-0 at halftime against the Colts, all of those starting receivers are going to go out or they're just going to play a blocking role. This is going to be a ground game for Kansas City where they're just going to run the clock out after beating the teeth out of the Colts. This is not going to be a close game. I don't think I like any of the Kansas City starting receivers in this one. And speaking of starting receivers that really did some work last week, we look at the Miami offense. Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill putting up monstrous numbers, getting something like 33 targets between the two of them. But this is now going to be a completely different story. It'll be an offensive shootout, I believe, between these two. But it's a matter of, can Miami's offense overcome this stout Buffalo defense? And I don't know if it's going to be enough. I don't know if Tua is elite enough to get out of that pass rush, to be able to get the ball out in time. Granted, Tyreek, one of the fastest receivers in the league, if not the fastest. I don't think it's going to be enough. I think I'm going to leave both of them in a position where, personally, if I had them on my team, this decision would be a lot harder, but I don't. So from an outside looking in, I'm leaving both Waddle and Tyreek in a bench slot this weekend, going against a solid Buffalo team, where I think Buffalo's going to come away with this one by at least 2 scores. That's all I got for wide receivers here this week, going into week number 3 of the 2022 season. Go ahead, leave a comment down below if you think that my judgment on Miami is a little too harsh playing against the Bills. Of course, AFC East matchup is going to be a banger of one right there. Or if you think that the Colts actually stand a fighting chance against the Chiefs, because, frankly, it's not looking good, Indy. Of course, like I said, if you'd like to see more, subscribe, hit that bell icon to get notified when I post more videos. I've got a quarterback edition, running back edition, I got tight ends, I got defenses, I got a lot of information that you may or may not think that you do or do not need. So if you want to hear all of that, if you want to see me talk some more, like, subscribe, and I'll see you next time.